Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the Archgun the Larkspur Prime. But before we start, let's go over our commenter board. The first commenter of the last video was Pepper the Short One, and the top commenter of the last video was a tie between Untruths and Roar XD Tone P4Me 9360. And then we have our recent channel supporters here of Elite Reverser, Whoop-de-Wham, and Nice Bear. Thank you so much for your support. I also just wanted to mention that we're close to 7,000 subscribers, and as you all already know, when we hit 7,000 subscribers, I will be challenging other Warframe creators to a Jello wrestling contest in my backyard wearing Borat-style mankinis. So if you're interested in that, make sure you're subscribing. Unique and interesting things about the Larkspur Prime is that it has a primary and an alternate fire. The primary fire is a beam that can chain to 3 other enemies, where each beam does 80% of the previous beam's damage. It also has innate radiation. The alternate fire charges and fires a grenade that has infinite punch through and explodes on surfaces in a 9.6 meter area. The alternate fire has innate radiation and blast. Now, the alternate fire has this unfortunate thing that when you fire it, it does a recoil effect where it pushes you back. It's almost like a forced self-stagger. And that's really annoying. You spend a lot of time in that, especially if you're trying to use the alternate fire as its own weapon instead of just using the primary fire. And because of that, the alternate fire is not really useful. And when we get into the weapon, you'll see that the primary fire is not very good versus acolytes, and I thought, well, maybe the alternate fire is good against acolytes. So, maybe that's something that you could use the alternate fire for. But unfortunately, the alternate fire is still bad against acolytes. So there's really no redeeming things about the alternate fire. I suggest just using the primary fire on the Larkspur Prime. And just one more unique thing that I missed is you get plus 300 ammo maximum on your Larkspur Prime when you're using it while playing Hildred. Now let's go over the mods. We have primed rubedo line barrel for plus 187% damage. On a lot of art guns, we use primed rubedo line barrel with primed deadly efficiency. However, on the Larkspur Prime, because it's a beam weapons only use 0.5 ammo per shot, plus we have a crux build, that means that it actually takes a really long time to go through your magazine. And so prime deadly efficiency, this bonus is only for 17 seconds. And on testing, in the best case scenario where you're just clicked on your left click and you're just shooting non-stop, you're still only getting about 50% effect out of primed deadly efficiency. And that's best case scenario. Most of the time, you're not even going to get 50% effect out of primed deadly efficiency. So for the Larkspur Prime specifically, I wouldn't suggest using primed rubedo line barrel and primed deadly efficiency. Leave primed deadly efficiency off of the Larkspur Prime. Next, we have prime dual rounds for plus 110% multi-shot, automatic trigger for plus 60% fire rate, sabot rounds for plus 60% damage and plus 3 punch through. Now, on beam weapons that chain, punch through is very powerful because the main beam, when it hits an enemy, that is the one that can chain to 3 enemies. Well, if that main beam punches through and hits another target, then that second target hit by the main beam can also chain to 3 other enemies. And so punch through it's already a powerful stat, but on chaining beam weapons, it's incredibly powerful. So you have the potential to do double, triple, quadruple possibly if the enemies are close enough amounts of damage with this mod here. So the plus 60% damage, that's kind of nice, but the plus 3 punch through is really, really powerful here on chaining beam weapons like the Larkspur. Next, we have hollowed bullets for plus 80% critical damage. In the next 2 mod slots here, we're going to be making viral. So we have the 60/60 toxic mod of contamination casing and the 60/60 cold mod of hypothermic shell to make viral. Then we have combustion rounds, which is the big 120% heat to add heat to the weapon. We use the big 120 instead of the 60/60 to try to get our heat weighting to be at least on par with viral. That's okay. In a perfect world, you would want your heat weighting to be over everything else. You could always do that with a Riven. If you get a Riven with heat, you can do that with it. There's also some tech you could do where you don't use fully upgraded viral mods. You use, maybe like a 2-star toxic and a 2-star cold mod. I personally don't like to do that. I have OCD. I like to see fully upgraded mods on my builds there, but it's a possibility to kind of underweight your viral, and that way your heat is overweighted. In the arcane slots here. In the primary arcane slot, we have primary crux. This is going to be 300% status chance and 60% ammo efficiency when it's fully stacked. If we go to a blank config here, this has a really good base status chance of 50%. So 300% status modded status chance actually gives us 150% final status chance, which is really, really strong. You know, and again, the ammo efficiency is also really good on this weapon because beam weapons already only use 0.5 per shot. And so that makes the Larkspur Prime extremely ammo efficient with adding even more efficiency here. In the secondary arcane slot, we're pretty much forced to use secondary enervate. Again, if we go to a blank config here, you see the critical chance is only 14%. Modding for crit is not really going to get you much more than maybe close to 50%, but it probably not even that. Modding for crit would probably get you like 35, 40%. So instead, we just go for secondary enervate, which will deal with all of our critical chance for us. Now, if we look at again, we're going to go to blank config here. If you look at the Larkspur Prime's critical damage, it does only have a base critical damage of 1.6. That's under average, or below average, I should say. So that does kind of suck, but it's still worth using enervate, and it's still worth using that one crit damage mod to at least bump it up to 2.9. This is how you build out the Archgun, the Larkspur Prime. I hope you guys liked it, and if you did, consider leaving a like and subscribing for future content. So now I'll have a 5-minute gameplay portion showcasing the weapon, and when that's done, we'll come back to the orbiter and we'll give it its final score and rank. So I'll see you guys again after the gameplay. Alrighty, we're about to start this 5-minute gameplay portion up here on the Larkspur Prime. Let's go ahead and hack the terminal, we'll get into it. I do have Proteus Dispensary on my Anoros just to make sure I'm fully topped up on heavy ammo all the time. That way I can give you guys a good showcase. However, you'll notice on the Larkspur Prime, I'm not going to really have to use it very often. And that's because the Larkspur Prime is incredibly ammo efficient. In fact, I'll try not to use Proteus Dispensary. And I probably will have to use it one time in this 5 minutes, but I have a feeling it's probably only going to have to be used one time. So I'll make sure I let you guys know if I have to use it. And that way you know I've used the dispensary. Of course, there's other ways to keep your arc guns out all the time. There's Proteus Dispensary, of course. There's Lavos that has a heavy weapons build. There's the Kubro that has the augment or mod called Dig, where you can dig up heavy weapons ammo. And then as you go through the mission will eventually spawn heavier enemies that have percent chances to drop heavy ammo too. I really like the Larkspur though. I really enjoy this weapon. Out of all of the arc guns I've done so far, this is one of the most enjoyable ones. I don't know if it's my absolute favorite, but it's one of the most enjoyable ones, I think. It does have a downside, and you'll see it when the Acolyte comes out. You'll see that it's not great damage versus the Acolyte. And that's because Acolytes can only stack statuses to 4. And so, like, on regular enemies, like Thraxes, Eximuses, or Trash, you can stack, 100 heat procs, and it's really good for single target. But versus the Acolyte, where you can only stack 4, it's not that good. It's kind of doo-doo damage versus the Acolyte. And I had initially thought, I was like, well, maybe that's where the alternate fire can come in, right? You get an Acolyte, you switch to alternate fire, and it might do some good damage to him. But I was wrong. The alternate fire is pretty bad versus the Acolyte. I was like, maybe that's the one redeeming thing with the alternate fire, right? You can switch to it and maybe, kill the Acolyte in a couple shots. Nope. See, I'd suggest just not using the alternate fire. Maybe someone in the comments has like a niche thing you could do with the alternate fire, though. I mean, it does have infinite body punch through. It's got the big 9.6 meter explosion radius. That's kind of cool. All right, I have not had to use any kind of like heavy ammo regaining tech yet. I have what's in my magazine and 100 left though, so maybe after this magazine I'll have to use a dispensary, we'll see. Unless I pick up some heavy ammo. The first 5 minutes of the game, they don't really spawn a lot of those like heavy gunners or other enemies that can drop heavy ammo though. So like the first 5 minutes is kind of like the hardest time for regaining your heavy ammo. After that, you should be able to get some here and there. All right, after I reload here, I am going to cast a dispensary just because I don't want to run out for the showcase here. So I'm going to cast a dispensary here. And we'll replenish some of our heavy ammo, but that's the first one I've had to cast. And I am fully topped up again. Got about a minute and a half left. That is probably the last one I'll have to cast there. I don't think I'll have to cast another dispensary. For ribbons for this weapon, I think getting a ribbon that had heat would be really nice, because then, you know, your heat would be overweighted. You wouldn't have to worry about doing weird stuff to like underweight your viral mods, which I don't do anyway. I don't really like that tech. And just because I have OCD, I don't like seeing unupgraded mods. So yeah, look for a ribbon with heat could be good to increase the strength of this weapon. Because we're using Enervate, you don't need crit chance, but crit damage might be nice. So heat, crit damage. What about the other stat? I don't know. Maybe probably like status chance or multi-shot. I'd probably go with multi-shot just because we're going to get a lot of status chance from Crux anyway. So yeah, crit damage, multi-shot, heat. In a perfect world, right, where you could actually pick your ribbons. That would be the god roll, I think. Or close to it. I don't know. Let me know if you think that there might be a better god roll. Obviously, you can't pick your ribbons, though. You're kind of stuck getting whatever you get. All right, we're almost at 5 minutes. We have not gotten an Acolyte yet. We'll get through Axis here in a couple seconds, though. This is really good versus Thraxes because it stacks a lot of those heat procs. Viral heat is really good versus Thraxes anyway. You see they both down, super easy. Okay, we got a Acolyte. You'll see that it's not very impressive damage here. It's taking him down. It's taking him down, but it's just not like this is. When we get to the ranking, I'm going to be stuck between like high C and B tier damage. Like I would probably say this is C tier damage, but it's high C tier damage. It's just not very good. It's not absolutely horrible. Like I wouldn't say it's D tier, but it's not good damage versus the Acolyte. So that's it for the 5 minutes there. We're actually at like 5 minutes and 40 seconds. So that's 621 kills. Let's go head back to the Orbiter now. Welcome back to the Orbiter, guys. So let's go over how the Larkspur Prime did in its 3 10-minute runs on Steel Path Lewis Circulus. It got 1,047, 1,102, and 1,165, putting it easily in the S tier for kill per minute potential. When it comes to single target damage, there's two different stories. There's the story versus regular thick enemies where they can stack statuses like normal. So that'd be like Xmas, Thraxes, Trash, although you don't really worry about single target damage on Trash, but you know what I'm saying, just regular thick enemies. And then you have the story versus like the weird enemies like Acolytes, where they only allow a certain amount of status stacking. Acolytes, for instance, are 4. Now versus normal thick enemies, this is extremely powerful. It's a viral heat build. You get a lot of heat procs. I would say on average, before you see an enemy go down, you're going to see like 80 to 100 heat procs on them, which is really good. The heat weighting could be better. I think if you had a Riven with heat, you know, you could definitely make the argument it's S tier at that point. But without a Riven, with the heat weighting being about the same as the viral, I would say it's high A. I would say it's high A tier. There are a lot of other weapons in the game, like I'm thinking like the new core, for instance, where you can get a lot more than 80 heat procs on enemies before they go down. You can get hundreds for some weapons. The Furious and Karnan being one of them. You know, you can get like a couple hundred before the enemies go down. So the Larkspur Prime, it's really good. I just don't think it's S tier. I think it's high A. But again, you could probably make the argument it's low S as well. Now versus the single target enemies where you can't stack a lot of statuses, that's where this weapon kind of starts hurting a bit. And it's because you're getting a lot of your damage out of those 80 to 100 heat procs. On the Acolyte, you can only stack 4 of them. And doesn't really do that well. On the Acolyte and on other like mini bosses where they can't stack statuses infinitely, I would say this is C tier damage. I would say it's high C tier damage, but it's C tier damage versus those enemies. When it comes to ease of use, very easy to use. It's a chaining beam weapon. You do have a crux build. You still want to get headshots, but you're kind of just going to get them randomly anyway. Just aim head height, and it shoots so quickly that even if you just once in a while hit a dude in the head, it's probably going to hit them multiple times because it shoots so quickly. And so Crux is going to get multiple stacks for that like one instance of that headshot. So it's not that hard at all really to keep Crux up. You know, it does require you to at least aim in the general direction of enemies and kind of aim head height. So I don't want to give it very high for ease of use. I think we'll give it B right in the middle for ease of use there. So that's my take on the weapon. Tell me what you guys think. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right, bye.